I've spent the majority of my life working in the outdoors as a soldier, outdoorsman, and guide. Many years ago, I came to a crossroad in my military career. I felt like I was at the point where I was no longer able to learn about survival from the military. So I searched and I watched as many new shows popped up like Dual Survival, Survivor Man, and others. Shows that partnered seasoned soldiers with primitive living instructors. I watched experienced soldiers who had amazing skills with tools fall short without them, and I had to look deep within myself and ask why. So, realizing that something was missing in my training, I then formulated a plan. I set out to find people with these skills in my area, to find out who they were, where they come from, who taught them, and more importantly, how could I learn and master these skills for myself. This journey has led me to a place where I have had the privilege of teaching these things that I love to others. Skills that now range from advanced navigation to primitive fire. This is my journey to primitive. This is my story, yet it is a story that has never really been about me.
There are many imitators, but I directly learned from the man who developed this idea. So the situation is that when someone says we need a snowshoe, in the imagination of the person, they see a native snowshoe that has a wooden rim and it's got, rawhide as the webbing and so on. Well, if you attempt to imitate a native snowshoe, even a native person has to be skilled in making such a snowshoe. And the result was that if you tried to tie two sticks together at this end, split it, and then use paracord, you took about 20 steps and you had a tangle of stick and paracord around your ankle. But if you lashed there's a wide variety. This would have been for a person with a small stature, and you would use maybe, if at most, 2 arm spans of string to build the ski shoe, rather than hundreds of feet to create webbing. And so you gather the sticks. If you go up and down hills a lot, you usually don't peel the bark off because the unpeeled stick will grip the snow better. And then you tie the toe, and then you balance the bundle of sticks until you get a perfect balance. And the attachment has to be, about the length of your shoe forward of the balance point. So that means that when you lift your foot, the toe comes up. And maybe if you curl the toes up sometimes, if you're in deeper snow, you just slide forward. So instead of taking distinct steps, like with regular snowshoes, you can shuffle, which might help. But anyway, Tom developed the concept, and then I took off. As I always say, a good instructor teaches you all they know, and a student has the opportunity to learn from the master and go further beyond what the master taught you. They call this the Canadian. Well, it was developed by Tom and no one else. So they should, Tom wouldn't call it the Roycraft snowshoe. I would. And other people, Tom might call it the Canadian snowshoe. But that there's a protocol that if you're the instigator, you have to have someone else recognize it. It's not sort of like, well, I'm the great person that developed the Roycraft snowshoe. That's kind of presumptuous and arrogant, you might say. But anyway, then there's the pack frame, and there are many other things that should be in the RCAF survival kit manual that never ever, like signal fires and many other things that he developed a unique and more effective way of doing things. So the ski shoe is probably makes the greatest sensation of all in the how effective it is when the snow is so deep you need snow. But anyway, I shortly after I met Tom, in a short while, there was the biggest thing going at that time was that the schools were adopting outdoor education to add to the curriculum. And so the government established a school called Blue Lake. The survival school is just a few miles from where the Blue Lake Center was. And so when they established the center, Tom already knew the person who was the director of the center. And so automatically, Tom and I became the survival instructors for whatever they advertised, of which the courses were very popular. Well, the courses we arranged, and we said, always make two classes, one for Tom, one for me. And Tom and I would double up, and I would watch Tom demonstrate and whatever until finally I could give the demonstration. And then I would give my, so we doubled up all the time, so acting like an instructor and co-instructor in a while. And then later, when the courses slowed down, I didn't need to be there because Tom had passed on all that information that was needed in the type of curriculum we made. Well, the center was patronized by the university outdoor programs, which were essentially part of the physical education situation. And there was an error that happened when they assigned outdoor education exclusively to phys ed, physical education. Now the physical education was producing lifeguards, swimming instructors, canoeing instructors, and so on, mainly catering to the needs of summer camps. And then the outdoor ed taking over by the phys ed teachers, they already really preoccupied with tournaments and everything, and they're expected to do a good job teaching kids how to dress, which should be home ec, teaching how to cook, camp cooking, that should be home ed, and things like science, the plants, mathematics, navigation, and all that. Any school that chose that way did much better than having the phys ed teacher do all those things. So I saw that was a deficiency in the idea how things go. As far as I know, I don't really know. I have so little to do with the outdoor education movement that I haven't done anything with it probably for 10 years or so. But anyway, the professors that used the center, one of them, when he went on sabbatical, he realized that I was the other side of the coin. He was the swimming instructor, or the sports, the outdoor type, the canoeing and so on, and the singing around the campfire. But I knew how to light fires. I knew how to use an axe skillfully. I knew how to sharpen knives. So everything he didn't know, I essentially fit the bill, and everything he knew, I essentially knew little about. The songs around the campfire and so on. So when he went on sabbatical, first thought he had, he said, would you like to take my place for a year? And I almost fainted because I couldn't understand what I heard. He was talking to me on the phone. He says, how would you like to take my place on campus? And I said, what? Take your place on campus? Yeah. You mean, no, Yeah. Well, if I'd set my sights to get into a position to do that without his participation, there's no hope in hell that I would fill a position in any faculty in the campus. But I became, so the more I worked with the people, the more they say, well, that guy knows his stuff. And he's the ultimate Roycraft pack frame. There is pack straps and enough cord to lash any load, whether it's a honcho moose or whatever you're carrying. I didn't use anything until the phenomenon of Value Village and Goodwill, where you could buy pack frames, the second-hand pack frames. So Tom, someone who went to the Korean War, explained to Tom how the farmers would bring produce to market, including a pack frame where you tied a live pig. So you took that pig from the farm and you took it alive, because if you butchered it, no refrigeration. So the people were ultimately going to buy that pig. They had the means to butcher the pig and preserve the results and share with many people. So you had to get the pig by market, and the easiest way. And the prongs that you have here, when you got the pack braid on, clear the ground sufficiently, but not too much. So when you spread your legs, the weight of the pack frame and the burden would be taken up by the prongs. So you're walking along a road, that's not a problem. Walking through the forest. So Tom modified this, and eventually in the RCAF that he worked with, they adopted it for a while, but never got into their manual. And eventually people sort of just, it wasn't developed by someone who was in the military, that he was a civilian laborer and whatever. So after the ski shoe, Tom is renowned for the pack frame. This crossbar is elbow to fingertip long. These are, so my version is slightly different, but I thought I borrowed it from his wife, and I thought people would sort of see how he handled it. After all, he developed it, you might say. Now his favorite axe was the one that more or less was issued in the RCAF survival kit. This is called the boy's axe. And it says HB on here, which we thought was Hudson Bay in style. Well, HB as Holzbrook. And the head is, so if you hold the head in your hand and you stick the axe in your armpit, you end up having a match to the bones of your hand. And in some cases in the summer, you would need this axe. They never ever adopted a saw in the RCF survival kit. But Tom found that a little hatchet would be handy for making kindling and stuff, and you could see that it wasn't very big, but it was meant to be used in camping. And he mounted paracord here that you could actually probably have enough to make a pair of ski shoes. And I brought a lot of his artifacts on display. People would be interested in that. And he had made so many walking sticks, from the time he retired, that his wife said, the house is full of walking sticks in the garage and everywhere else. When we loaded them up, and she kept what she wanted, like maybe 20 or so for her kids and so on. The remainder were brought here, and there was 160 canes and staffs. So I said, well, bring it here and that'll be a memento of my guru, the guy who a lot of people know the name Roycraft from the fact of the pack frame and ski shoe.